Start with obviously the nice and easy stuff, and being that you guys at the end of season 3 washed up in America, this is obviously an allegory for immigration policy in the West, right? What can we expect? What can fans expect? Let's start with that one. After you washed up on shores in America, what can fans expect from season 4?
Wow, what can they expect? Well, I think this is, the great thing about this season is it is the story of this immigrant family. And Jamie and Claire finally are in this position to build a new life for themselves from scratch and, leave behind all of the trouble that Jamie had in Scotland. And, it's not that America is not without its complications for them, but we've never really seen them both sort of have this fresh start. And so it's a different dynamic for the characters. Obviously, we will see lots of new characters come in as well. There's some of Jamie's family. We're currently in Aunt Jocasta's house at the moment. But yeah, it's a really different season, and it's really interesting.
It's kind of like if a band has real success at the beginning in the world of music, fans come back and they want what attracted them to that band at the beginning, but they also want to move forward. And as an artist, I'm sure you want to move forward. So it's probably really exciting for you that you do get, your characters are getting a new start, but you got a bit of a new start as well.
Yeah, I mean, Claire this season is in such a different place, I guess, than we've seen her before. I mean, obviously, she's had such an emotional connection to America anyway, because she raised her daughter there. So there's this sense of being closer to Brianna just because they're on the same land, I suppose. But there's a lot of complications being in America in this time in the 18th century, because Claire knows sort of the history or the general history of what's happening around her, and she can see what's happening around her, and that's very hard for a modern woman to observe. And in some ways their lives become entwined in some of the situations that are going on at that time, and that's very difficult for her. But as the season progresses and they sort of start their own life in their own place, it's a chance for them to sort of create their own environment and build from the ground up their family and their little society and community that they want to have. So that's quite nice to see.
It's an unusual situation, I suppose, for a daughter to see her mother in one way in a relationship, Claire's relationship with Frank, as opposed to the relationship she knows and sees how her mother is when she speaks about Jamie. How do you think she will, or is her character is dealing with that kind of juxtaposition?
God,
She's quite a different woman, isn't she, with both men? So
yeah, I mean, I think Claire in the beginning of season 3, when we really saw her in the 40s, 50s, and 60s with Frank, even though she was very accomplished, she was a very, in many ways, her life was compromised. She had put this huge part of herself to one side, and I think someone who's living without intimacy and without that kind of romantic love, she definitely closed off a side of herself, and she was very reserved. And I think Brianna would be quite surprised by how free and wild in many ways Claire is. And I don't know how she feels about seeing that side of her mother. It's like, does anyone want to know that side of their mothers? But,
Mom, gross.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, I definitely think in the beginning of this season as well, not being with Brianna or not being able to know how Brianna is something that weighs quite heavily on Claire.
Fans who know the book obviously will be anticipating a meeting between Brianna and Jamie. How do you think, I mean, everybody, that is obviously going to be a huge part of season 4.
Yeah.
I say obviously. Talk to me about what leading up to that is like and the anticipation for that, both, inside the production and outside.
We haven't filmed it yet.
Yeah.
So, I guess obviously that's going to be such a huge moment, just to have this family unit together in this configuration is going to be huge. You know, I think it will be complicated. Yeah. Because we don't do anything very simply. But yeah, I also think there's going to be a lot of healing, and I think that that's probably the biggest thing. Is probably there'll be a lot of healing from everybody being able to sort of be able to speak their truth and see each other, and that'll be beautiful to watch.
What was the big surprise? What is the biggest surprise for you now? I think I probably asked you that when we were on set a couple of years ago, when you were just getting into filming season 3. This show has obviously grown for you, changed your life in many ways. What continues to be maybe the biggest surprise for you about this project?
You know, it's just been such a wild ride to be on something that, you know, obviously the book series had such a huge fan base and a huge life, and that had sustained itself for over 20 years. So coming onto the show, you never know if that's going to work. You know, if people are going to like what you do or not. Yeah. That's quite a risk, but it's been amazing. I mean, it's been so gratifying to be part of something that's so much bigger than us, and you see that people's lives are so invested in these characters, and you know, there's generations of family who are into it, and that's, you know, that's crazy. Like I was a big fan of Lord of the Rings and stuff like that when I was growing up, and you know, just to be part of something, I mean, obviously we're not on that level, but part of something that's in people's lives and that they bond over. Yeah, it's very cool. So.
The fans are, I mean, and sometimes you can use, and the word fan is used incorrectly because it's obviously an abbreviation of fanatic, but there are people who are fanatical about the books and about the show. You got engaged recently, congratulations.
Thank you.
By the way. And were you aware that maybe some people might be a bit out of joint about the fact that, well, you and Sam didn't end up, what, you have a life outside of this world? I mean, there are some people who are, you know, heavily invested in the show and the people involved, right? And that's lovely.
You know, I would say 99.9% of the things that I have seen have just been so positive and lovely, and you know, it's just so nice that people are so happy for you and they send all their well wishes, and the very small percentage of people who don't want to be happy for other people in their lives, you know, that's just a part of everything, so you just have to forget about that. And but you know, it's one of the other things that this show has brought me. You know, I probably wouldn't have met my partner if it hadn't been for this show, so that's been a great thing. So thank you, Outlander.
So he understands that world as well, obviously. Yeah. Okay, so we have a steaminess rating back home, and obviously the show's been going on for a while now. It's right here on the cue cards. Very serious journalistic question coming here. How would you rate the steaminess for season 4 on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being not steamy, 10 being too hot to handle.
Well, it's definitely not too hot to handle, good, because we couldn't air it then.
And it's in Scotland. You're shooting in Scotland, and it's always tempered.
You know, I think, well, put us at a 7.
7?
I don't know. Yeah.
So family can still enjoy it together.
Yeah.
There you go.